Michelle. How are you?
Good. I'm so happy to be here. It's been so long since we've seen each other.
I
It
know.
has
We're
been so
so
long.
happy to welcome you to our podcast.
Yes.
And we were so I'm sorry, I'm like not with it this morning.
Would you like a restart?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Focus. I'm sorry. Ah,
Michelle, we're going to
no,
restart that
yeah.
one if you don't.
Okay.
No. Fine, we can trim that out. It's real. It's real.
It's okay.
It's fine. Thank you.
I got
Thank
this.
you.
All
Okay.
right, here we
Yep.
go.
Yep.
Flex them back
Yep.
in there.
Thank you.
All right, Michelle Purta, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm doing so good. I just came back from my walk. I'm super excited to talk to you guys. You guys were on my podcast, so I know this is going to be a good conversation.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We really did enjoy being on your podcast, and obviously that's why we just had to have you on our show. I feel
Mhm.
like now we can say we're all BFFs.
That's right. That's right.
Pretty much.
So we look forward to last week we talked about us a little bit more, and we're looking forward to hearing your perspective on hobbies and also what you do as a profession. So I don't know if you want to dive right in and just tell us a little bit about yourself, tell our listeners what you do for, for fun, but also for work.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let's start off with what I do for fun.
Yeah.
So I love to cook because food is life. I
It is.
joke and say that it's like one of my love languages. And my husband knows this, is that food is number one and he's number two.
Yes, cheese fries first.
I also love to read. I've gotten back into reading recently. Can't read very much though, because I get really tired reading. I don't know if that happens to you too.
Yes.
If I can get through all of like maybe 5 pages, or if it's like super interesting and I'm not super exhausted, then I can read more. I've been reading A Court of Thorns and Roses
Yes.
lately.
Yeah.
That's
a
been
hot
really
book.
big. Yeah, super popular.
Mhm.
And I'm on the second book. I think I'm finishing it up. I got like this Kindle bundle where it's like all 5 books in one, so I can't really tell how far I am.
Oh, wow. That sounds
Um,
intimidating.
no, it really
Yeah.
is, because it'll be like, you are 10% done. I'm like,
Hours.
yeah. What else? Oh, so I recently moved from California to Georgia.
Mhm.
And the one question I kept being asked by all my new neighbors, all these new people that I meet in this community, is, do you play tennis?
Mhm.
And so after about like the third time I was asked that, I was like, should I play tennis? So I started up with a group of other moms who are all super new to the sport. So we have a good time. We suck together and it's just really fun.
That's awesome.
It's always nice when you can collectively suck, because then
Right?
you don't feel as bad about yourself. You're like, misery loves company, kind of,
Definitely.
right?
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. And there's like no pressure to
Right.
be like
No.
super good. We're just all really, really super beginner. So
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Mhm.
What else? Oh, I also really like walking. I told you guys I just came back from a walk. It is so beautiful here in the fall in California. We didn't really get fall. We have like
Mhm.
2 seasons there.
Mhm.
Not complaining about the weather there. It
No.
is amazing, but it is so beautiful here. And so every weekday after I drop off my son at school, I go for a walk at my favorite park and just, I love it. It's good movement and it's just good, like downtime for myself where nobody's talking to me and I get to
Yeah.
listen to whatever I want, whether
Yeah.
it's like my own inappropriate music or my favorite podcast episodes.
Sometimes it's hard to pick.
It really
Yeah.
is perfect. Sometimes layer both.
Yeah, definitely.
If I
That's
had,
awesome. So
if
you
I
have a
had
good.
two things, yeah.
I love it. That's too funny. So you're a life and marriage coach, right?
Yes,
And
I
so I
am.
kind of want to dive into um, some of your experience with working with couples and navigating hobbies, because I think as we
Mhm.
found, that was something that was really key for us and some of others that we've had on our show, is that it really is kind of a team effort
Mhm.
to make sure that you kind of get that self-care time, that hobby time. What are some strategies that you
Yeah.
have suggested to couples who have kind of shown up at your doorstep and said, we need help figuring out how to navigate self-care?
Yeah. So most of the time they don't know that is a huge piece
Wow.
of setting up a strong foundation for your marriage, is that self-care part,
Mhm.
right? They're like, oh, we're having issues communicating. Okay, well, hold up. in order for us to even utilize the tools, which you may or may not have yet,
Mhm.
you have to be ready to use them, because I can teach you all the communication tools, but if you're not taking care of yourself,
Mhm.
you're not going to have the bandwidth to be like, hold on, pause, let me pull out my communication tools and use these. You're
Mhm.
going to be more reactive because you are not feeling at your best.
Mhm.
You're constantly giving, giving, giving to other people, whether it's your kids, your house, your spouse, your boss, like whatever your circumstances are, you are not taking care of yourself. And so you're showing up with an empty bucket.
Mhm.
The last thing you're going to be like is like, how can I be an adult in this conversation?
Mhm.
No, you're going to be super reactive, defensive, act like a child, which we all can do when we
Mhm.
feel depleted, right?
Mhm.
Like, no judgment. I
Mhm.
can definitely be like that. And so oftentimes the conversation first starts up as, what do you do for yourself?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah.
How do you fill your cup up to be that version of a spouse that you want to be for your marriage? And they're just like dumbfounded. They
That's a
have
great
no
question.
answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we found that so many people, especially women, we talked to mostly women, but that feel this way, and they didn't realize or didn't prioritize
Mhm.
that they had been putting it on the back burner for so long, and then you forget who you are, right? And then, yes, I mean, it makes sense what you're saying, that how that would affect your relationship and marriage. So yeah, it's a really good message for our listeners.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and I've been through that myself too,
Mhm.
you know, like I have 3 kids. I was a stepmom first, and then I had a son, and then I had a daughter. And looking back, it's kind of fun because I'm like, oh, the progression that I see in myself each time, a child was added to my life. But like it was hard,
Mhm.
you feel so much pressure to be so responsible. Like when we think of mom, we think of someone who's responsible,
Mhm.
in
Right.
charge. We do
Yeah.
it all. We are in charge of everyone's feelings, what they're up to, what they're doing, how the house feels. We are the heart of the family,
Mhm.
right? And we don't look at, oh, well, how do we fuel ourselves to
Mhm.
be that? If we're just constantly giving, 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 we're just like setting our whole family up for failure. And so we need to stop looking at how much more can I do for other people and start loving ourselves first. And
Mhm.
that can look like exploring new hobbies, old hobbies, being curious about, hey, I was in a really ugly mood today. I was yelling at my kids so much, and they were just being kids. Like that
Mhm.
was my problem. I didn't know, right?
Mhm.
It's partially how I was brought up, but also I wasn't setting myself up for success to be the kind of mom that I want to be, to be the wife I want to be. And so I found myself in a lot of conflict with my kids, with my husband. And I'm like, wait a minute, am I an angry person?
Mhm.
Like, am I really that person who's just on their family and they have to feel like they're on eggshells with me?
And then that only perpetuates this negative feeling of you
Yeah,
feeling like you're doing enough or good enough. Yeah,
exactly.
absolutely.
And
Hmm.
so if you're in this space, I want you to like step back and think about, how can I be proactive about this?
Hmm.
Mhm.
What do I need to feel good about myself? Because I love to think about this kind of like, when you're in the newborn stage, right? And your kid's like waking up every freaking hour,
Hmm.
right? And you're
Rough.
like, I
Mhm.
just finished feeding you
Yeah.
Hmm.
and you're already awake. I didn't even
Start
get
to
to
go a
fall
little,
asleep
I'm
yet.
yeah,
sweating
you
just thinking about it. I'm nervous again.
to go a little crazy like you do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
And then you get like a 2, 3 hour stint and you're like, oh my
Mhm.
gosh, I feel like a new woman,
Hmm.
right?
Mhm.
It's
Definitely.
kind of like that.
Yep.
It's like when you know kind of thing, and
Yep.
you never want to go back. And
Hmm.
so if you're not in that club yet, like, hey, we are welcoming you with open arms. Like,
Truly.
be selfish, because when
Definitely.
you are selfish about taking care of yourself, you're actually creating this like massive positive ripple effect that's going to bring so much more harmony into your family. Like you're going to get to love yourself more, feel better about who you're being. Like I know when I take care of myself, which is why my walk has become non-negotiable, by the
Yeah.
way.
Great.
I know that when I go on a walk, I'm like so much more willing to listen to like the endless stories that my son wants to tell me when he gets home from school.
Yeah, you feel better. You're in a better headspace. I feel like your hobby of walking is such a great example of you don't actually need anything to have self-care. You're literally just walking out the door, and it's not a huge chunk of time to just change your whole day, right? And where my brain goes is like, your walking is the equivalent of an essential need, like sleep. Just like, and you're making those parallels. And I think that's so important to like make that point that self-care time is an essential thing, like sleep and eating and, making sure that you are getting all those things your body needs. So
we're not robots. It's not like you're like, oh, let me just go put myself on the charger and I'm good to go. It's like, no, we are people. Like we need different things to fill us up, right? We've got our mental health, our physical health, our spiritual health, our emotional health. Like all of that needs to be filled. And I'm not even naming everything that we need. We also need intimacy and connection, right? And so the more we can accept that, we're a little complicated. How can we feed and nourish ourselves to be who we want to be? I mean, that's what it comes down to. It's like, if you don't like your current reality, who are you being that is creating this reality? And who do you want to create?
Yeah. I mean, if you don't have that, then what are you outside of that?
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I love that. One thing we were talking about before we got on here was I would love to hear your perspective on, do you feel like it's important to have, like how we're talking about hobby with your spouse or your significant other, or do you think it's important to have separate ones? Like what do you feel like is more important, or do you need both?
I really actually am wanting you to coach me through this, because I'm trying to decide if I'm actually going to sit in the golf cart or if I'm just going to say go.
Okay, so I hear two things here. Is it important to have separate hobbies? And then is it important to have hobbies with your spouse? So it's not a or thing.
Right.
Okay. So for the first one, it is really important that you have things that you do on your own. Okay. You came into the relationship as an individual and you must stay an individual. Okay. For several reasons. It brings you your own space to do your own thing and be you without feeling the need. Because like when you're with someone, you're like, oh, I have to take them into consideration. I have to go at their pace. And like when they're ready to move on, I have to think, oh, do I want to keep doing this or do I want to move on? Right? Like there's just a lot of things that are going on in the background because as women, we have been taught, and I think we're naturally more considerate. We care more about like how other people feel. And so that's just on our radar. Okay. But when we're doing something on our own, we literally just get to decide how long, how much, how deep we go into it. We can just say, oh, I'm not really feeling it today. And we can move on and do something else. We can switch, right? So that, and when we do something on our own, it actually brings a freshness into the relationship because you have something to talk about.
Yeah.
If you're with your spouse 24/7, you're going to feel like I got nothing to say because you were literally there.
That's so true.
That's a really good point. Like I never even considered like you talking. So taking the two parts, like you talked about how, like just kind of being your own person and like not thinking about other people. Because I think I personally really struggle with not trying to, in the hobby sense, every time I start a new hobby, I'm trying to pull my kids in with me. And I have a really hard time trying to separate it to make it me time. So when I'm doing these hobbies, I'm still trying to find a way to make sure it's really pleasurable for the girls, but not myself. Right. So I really need to make sure I work on keeping that separate so that I really am just working on just doing what makes me happy and not trying to find a way that makes a collective happy.
I'm going to switch that up on you.
Go ahead.
I'm going to switch that up on you. What if your daughter was like, I really want to play soccer, but I need you to be on my team?
Man, I don't think the soccer. I would say, what about something like podcasting?
But if
you see, like,
but if she only do it if you're doing it,
man, I think honestly, if I really know myself and really think about myself, I think I would try to find some way to be involved in that aspect. I think I would try to be there for her. Is that bad? What's the answer?
No, that's not bad. I think that just speaks to you wanting to connect with her. But would you allow her to say, I'm not going to do it if someone else doesn't do it with her? Like, what kind of daughter do you want to raise? So let's speed time up. Let's say
Okay.
she's 20 and
Okay.
she's like, I really want to watch this movie, or I really want to go to this concert, or I really want to go check out this festival, but I can't find anyone to go with me. What would you say to her?
That's impressive because I don't think I've you're blowing my mind right now, Michelle, because I think I would try to figure out a way to accommodate her. And if it wasn't finding a friend, it would be myself. Why can't I encourage my daughter to find the time to do something by herself? Why am I not thinking right off the bat of options or solutions for that? I'm I'm blown. I'm shaking actually. What's the answer?
I mean, I think to me, what you're saying, like, it's not even about the activity. It's about having your own brain, like the things that you like, and you're
Yeah.
okay with liking what you like and not
Yeah.
caring what anybody else thinks, you know?
Yeah,
I
like
think that's what it comes down to really, is the mentality of
Yeah.
like, you want to, well, like, have a child or be a person who, hey, I like this thing. I don't care if anybody else likes it, but I'm
Yeah.
still gonna like it.
yes.
You know, like, I love Taylor Swift and I don't care, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
great
but
example.
so, and it doesn't necessarily mean like you're doing it by yourself necessarily, or one way or the other, but I think that's the point you're getting at, right? Like,
Yeah,
this
it's like
idea of liking what
you get to you get to like what you like. You get to explore what you want to explore, and you don't have to be reliant on other people to do it with you, to
Mhm.
give that to yourself.
Right. Okay. So then what are some like opening statements that I could kind of say to my daughters to kind of encourage them at their age level, which is like 5 and 8, that can help them navigate that?
Yeah, so if they're wanting to try something, then you could do baby steps. So like let's say it is soccer and they're a little hesitant, right? It's like, oh, well, let's go to the park with a soccer ball. Let's see if we could like find some friends. Like I think the issue is like I feel uncomfortable trying something new without someone that I'm familiar with. But the more we put ourselves in situations where it's uncomfortable, the more used to it gets. It's like you begin to trust yourself a bit more, kind of like motherhood, right? In the beginning,
Mhm.
you're like just an anxious mess, like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I need to go to Target and my husband's not home. And oh my gosh, am I really going to leave the house with this baby? Like, what do I
I
need?
remember that feeling.
Do I need like a whole suitcase of stuff? Right? You're like very anxious. But
Mhm.
over time, you learn to trust yourself. Like, no, I got this. All we need is like a few diapers, some wipes, an extra change of clothes, and we're good to go. If we really need to, we'll stop at the store and get something. Like we're okay. Right?
Yeah.
Although there was this one time I felt ballsy and I left the house without an extra change of outfit
Oh boy.
for myself.
Don't do it. Never
For
do
myself,
it.
and my son shit on me. So there's
Oh, never do that again.
No,
never do that again.
never fails. Never fails.
But yeah, there's like definitely things that we can foster because I don't know about you, but I really want to help my kids be independent. It's like if you want to go do something, go do something. Sure, you can invite people. Of course, sometimes that's gonna be way more enjoyable, but don't let someone not being available or someone not sharing that interest with you stop you from doing what you really want to do.
That's great.
Mhm.
It's great. I really appreciate you bringing that perspective to my
Mhm.
attention because I honestly, like, I don't think I thought that far ahead into it, like I'm trying to lead by example with the hobbies, and trying to, um, show them what I'm doing. I know in the beginning a lot, I kept trying to say like, "Ooh, that's a cute hobby. Ooh, I like that hobby." And then my kids kind of just got tired of hearing the word hobby. They're like, "Can you just stop?" So I transitioned to the showing by example kind of thing, but I don't think I moved to that step of like when they approach me with that, how to give them the encouragement or give them the tools to kind of think about just trying something on their own, even if people didn't want to join them. It's such a great perspective, and I really appreciate you challenging me on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like with your skateboarding, right? You don't have to be like, oh, I want a skateboard. I'm going to buy myself one and I'm going to buy my kids one. It's like,
Yeah.
no,
Right.
you just go do it. If they
Right.
show interest, cool. Like they don't need to skateboard too. They could go on their bikes, they can go on their scooters or whatever the heck they're
Absolutely.
using.
Yes.
But you can show them, oh, mom had an interesting thought that she wanted to see if she liked, and she's trying it. She's going for it.
Yeah, I 100%. I feel like that was a really good one you did on your, like, really did on your own. Like, the one thing I'm thinking about is like when we've been trying these hobbies. When we first started, like, neither of us really had true hobbies. It was all about other people, right? And I have noticed, and I just, for our listeners, like, when you do go out and start these smaller hobbies, like what you're saying, it breaks down that barrier of that nervousness of failure or,
Yes.
you know, just worrying about what other people think or all those things. And I think like perfectionism can get broken down and all these things that are barriers to trying new things. Hobbies are such like a good entryway to
They really
just
are.
like open up yourself to a whole new world of possibilities and figuring out who you are. So, I think that I've definitely found that in my experience of trying just trying stuff, just trying
Absolutely.
stuff.
No, totally. I think
Yeah.
putting ourselves in positions to fail
Mhm.
and not be good at something is really challenging if you're not used to it. Like if you
Yes.
grew up doing sports or grew up, playing an instrument or anything that requires some kind of like novelty thing that you need to gain experience to get better at, like I think that's always a good thing,
Definitely.
right? Like you learn more about yourself. Also, you gain more confidence in yourself because you're like, oh, wow, I used to not be able to do that. So, like for my son, he just started playing basketball and he has not ever done sports ever just because he has never been interested in it. He just does swim and like he used to do jujitsu, but like organized sports that require
Yeah.
like hand-eye coordination with some external thing like a ball, like not ever something that he was interested in. And I was just watching him at practice. I'm like, oh, this is gonna be a long road, right? Like he is not good. It's just not natural to him. And just over the past, let's see, he's had 4 different practices now. I'm like, dude, you have such a better handle on the ball now. You can
That's
walk with the
amazing.
ball without it getting away from you as much. Or, hey, I saw you guarding your guy. You were chasing after him. Even though he was really fast, you were still going there. Or, hey, you're paying more attention. You're not just deciding to sit down on the court while the game is playing. Like, so it's just so great to be able to reflect on your own personal growth. Like, hey, you might not be where you want to be, where you're like, hey, I am Steph Curry. I'm so good.
Yeah.
Like, okay, that's unreasonable,
Yeah.
right? But you're like, hey, you know what? I'm so much better than when I started. I can't wait to see how much better I get.
Definitely.
I think that's a great way to look at that. I really do. Um, Another question I kind of had for you is, so when we try to suggest hobbies to women, sometimes I think it kind of comes off as we're trying to give them another checkbox on their to-do list.
Yes.
And it's not a part of that checkbox of the to-do list. I feel like a to-do list almost kind of sets up a tone of almost like a chore, like it's a chore. It's almost a burden, right? But like as Erin pointed out, hobbies are like that entry level that we're trying to introduce to women as like to get you into that self-care routine. What advice would you help us have to give to other women to show how this isn't just another checkbox on your to-do list?
Yeah, I get how people could see it that way because it's like, oh, but it's taking me away from fill in the blank, doing the laundry, doing the dishes, cooking, I don't know, helping the kids with something, playing with them, whatever, right? Connecting with my husband. And I want you to love yourself so much that you treat yourself like you are your own child. So, what do you do when you notice your kids are like just totally exhausted?
Try and get them to go to sleep.
Yeah, you get them to
Or
rest.
get them to relax. Yeah.
Right.
Rest.
It's like quiet time, right?
Definitely.
Why don't we do that for ourselves?
Yeah.
We like go, 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 go as if we are robots, like we have never ending energy. And we wonder why we feel burned out all the time, why we become that version of ourselves that we don't like and we feel guilty for. So, what if this hobby is your way of putting downtime into your schedule? And I say schedule on purpose, right? It's like if you are getting in the habit of prioritizing yourself, prioritizing your wellness, your hobby, your mental health, whatever, why aren't you making that like a non-negotiable, right? Like, so for my walk, it is literally non-negotiable. Everything is working around that. Sometimes I might have to shorten it. Sometimes I might have to like make it a different time or go somewhere closer, whatever, but it is a non-negotiable. And so when we start to look at it that way, then we start to ask ourselves different questions. So instead of making excuses like, oh, but I need to eat breakfast first, or oh, I have to go do this. It's like, okay, well, how can I do this and that? How
Mhm.
can I make this work? Whether it's asking for support, and I'll get back to that question you asked about, having a hobby with your husband. But like, for example, it's like, okay, well, I really don't like waking up early. Just not a morning person. So I will wake up when I need to get
Mhm.
the kids ready for school. But that doesn't leave me much time to eat breakfast before I take them to school because I'm like on this new habit of making sure I get enough protein, which means not eating cereal or anything that is like super easy to set up. And so I now batch cook my proteins, whether that's like my chicken apple sausages for the week, or I have like these Costco frozen chicken sausages. Those are super easy to pop into the air fryer, right? But I just cook my eggs. I reheat the meat. I put it in a Tupperware and set up my tea thing, and I bring it with me to take my son to school, and I will eat it in the parking lot of the park that I am walking at.
Make it work. Yeah.
I
Mhm.
make it work,
Mhm.
right? It's like I'm gonna get my protein and I'm gonna get my walk in.
Mhm.
So, or like if you have an errand to run, okay, where can I walk near there?
Mhm.
Right? How can you
Yep.
program yourself to be like, no, this is just the way I am. This is a part of my day. It's not, oh, do I have time to do this today? Oh, that's too bad. Maybe tomorrow. And then it's like rinse and repeat. And next thing you know, you're like, oh, it's been like 3 months since I've actually done something for myself. No
Mhm.
wonder I'm so bitchy.
Mhm. It's so true.
So
Yeah. I think it's great advice, just like getting in that routine, like setting the habit.
Mhm.
It takes time to do that, right? But and then I think it comes back to finding something that does, you have to explore a little bit to find something that does you really truly do enjoy, that you
Mhm.
look forward to, and then you want to build it into your life too, right?
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really important to also listen to that little voice inside, right? Where it's like you see something like, ooh, that looks interesting.
Yeah.
Like oftentimes we're like, ooh, and then the next thing, it's like squirrel, like we move
Yes.
on,
Yes.
So
right?
We've
And then we
watched that as
see it
adults.
again,
Hmm.
and then we're like, oh yeah, that's cool. And then, we get into this cycle of like we notice it, we're intrigued, and then we move on. And
Yep.
then we notice it again, we get intrigued. But every time we don't allow ourselves to explore that intrigue, it's almost like a heaviness that builds on us. It's like, oh, there we go, giving up on ourselves.
Yeah.
There we
Just
go,
ignoring
ignoring
your needs again.
ourselves.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And so Instagram's been getting me.
Yeah. Yeah.
They keep marketing this like paint by numbers thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, fuck it. I'm gonna get it.
Yeah.
And so I
Awesome.
bought it. And so I'm
Nice.
like waiting for it to come. I'm
Awesome.
like,
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
gonna do this while I like edit my podcast, like while I'm listening to it back. I'm just gonna do this because it's like
Nice.
this is way
Oh,
better than just like
definitely share with us how that goes.
Yes,
Yeah.
send pictures.
yes, I will. I will for sure.
That's fantastic. So, kind of going back to talking about your personal self and hobbies, it kind of sounds like walking is really like to your heart. Like that's your hobby
Oh
that
yes.
really is everything to you. Do you
And
find that
cooking.
when you're, oh yeah, and you're cooking, when you're walking, do you find yourself able to kind of like reset? Do you feel like do you feel that there's almost like a transformative? Uh,
It is actually, like so I love my business a lot and I know that if I just sit at my desk and be like, what should I create? It's not going to work out very well, right? And so what's nice is that I notice that when I go walking, it really clears my mind because I have nothing to do. I'm just walking, I'm smiling at people when I see them. I'm noticing the beautiful trees because it's fall, right?
Hmm.
And then I'm listening to podcasts or I'm listening to music, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, an idea just popped up for
Hmm.
like a podcast episode or a post. Like, and so it really like brings so much clarity
Hmm.
to my mind that I have this space to be creative, to draw the parallels that I love to do when I share my posts. Cause it's just like, I'm just allowing, I'm like an empty vessel, letting things just come in and out. And it's like, wow, I would have never had this if I just
Yeah.
like didn't do this for myself.
I think that's a big benefit of hobbies and doing
Yeah.
anything meditative like that or being
Yeah.
present because we're so busy to like what you've been saying that we don't allow all the creativity's gone, right?
Mhm.
Like we've talked a lot about how we feel like we're not we've become not creative people because of our work and families and all that. And we're trying to like rediscover that. So I think I'm going to try walking.
I was just gonna say, like,
You've inspired us.
I am not like a physical person at
Yeah.
all. I think I've said that already in this episode. I'm gonna stress it again. I don't do physical. But
you can walk because you already
Yeah.
walk.
That's right. That's right.
It's like the easiest way for me to pretend that I
Mhm.
am. And I feel like you're really inspiring me to really just like after today, just get up and just walk. I mean,
Yeah.
what's the
Yeah.
worst that can happen, right? Maybe I sprained my ankle and then I never did it again, but I just feel like it can be literally as simple as that. Your
Yeah.
hobby is you just walk out your front
Yep.
door and take a lap around the
Yep.
block.
Yep.
Brilliant.
Start
Absolutely.
small, right?
Start
That's what we
small.
try to
Yes.
preach is like, don't
Like low
overwhelm
barrier
yourself.
to entry. You
Yeah.
don't have to buy supplies. You don't have to worry about getting that thread
Yeah.
needle.
You don't have
And
to.
make it fun, right?
Yeah.
Like make
Yeah.
it fun. I have like this high energy playlist that I set up for the days that I feel like walking and running, so it's like when I feel like running, I'll go run and then I will get back to walking. There's like no pressure
Yeah. I love that.
to run a certain amount or whatever. It's just like, okay, I'm just going to do my minimum of 3 miles and then I'm ready. So it's like I either walk it or walk and run it. It doesn't matter. It's whatever I feel like doing. And I think the more we nurture that, no, I'm just going to do whatever I feel like, it's like the easier it gets to actually do that.
Absolutely. I agree. Oh my gosh, Michelle, you've been really, really wonderful on this show. Is there any final thing that you want to kind of pass along to our listeners with regards to hobbies and happiness?
Yeah. So I do want to go back to the husband question. Right?
Oh,
Is it
yeah,
important to
please.
have a hobby with your husband? So I will say that it doesn't necessarily need to be a hobby per se. That is, it could be fun, but also I know how hard that can be because that means you got to find childcare. If this is a hobby that you do outside the home or that you can't do around kids, right? Because that after bedtime slot is like very
So tired.
in demand, right? It's like you're either going to sleep, you're connecting with your husband or whatever, right? So I will say it's more important to do something where you have shared interests, not necessarily a hobby. Okay. Like, yeah, if you have a hobby, fantastic. Nurture that. Because the more you can do to enjoy something with your husband, that creates memories. That creates connection. That creates something to talk about, right? So I love to do things that fall into different buckets when it comes to like planning dates with my husband, right? Either it's something creative where it's like we're both going in, like we have no idea what we're going to end up with, like whether it's like the sip and paint, or painting pottery, or doing something, or doing something fun and exciting, like an escape room, right? Or something that involves teamwork, also escape room, or doing something else, or doing something that moves our body, like going hiking or watching a movie, like anything that fulfills not a trait or characteristic, but a feeling that you want that is important to you in your relationship. Find something or multiple things that fill that up. So it's kind of like values, right? When we raise our kids, we have certain values that we're trying to instill in them. And we establish these as a couple, and we just make sure that the decisions that we're making for our kids follow that and align with that. Same thing with your marriage. What makes your marriage feel really good, right? It could be like, there's all kinds of different couples, right? Some are just like really into quiet moments and they love sitting by the fire and playing board games. And some people are like, we love riding roller coasters or doing like haunted houses with each other, whatever, like way more excitement. And so you kind of have to figure out what kind of couple are you? And you could do both. Like you don't have to be one or the other, right?
Right.
But like just pulling out, what are these different feelings that we like to feel together, and then creating moments that fill that up.
I love that. That's such great advice.
It really is.
Yeah, it's a good way to look at it versus like a specific thing to do, like like focusing more on the feelings. I love that.
Yeah, I don't think it would.
And it helps it not get boring too. So it's like, oh, we're going on a date. What are we going to do? Let's look at this like list of
Go out
5
to
things that we do
dinner.
all the time. Right.
That's
Exactly.
a good point.
Yes.
Guess it's dinner again.
Where are we gonna go? Yes, for
We
sure.
share the feeling of being full.
Yeah, yeah. So no, I love that idea. So I want to try to like keep that in the back of my brain when I'm next time we're thinking about date night.
Absolutely.
Like, what's our energy level? What are we feeling?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to be adventurous? Do you want to be low key? Like, what's the thing? Do you just want to stroll down Main Street and look at all the Christmas decorations?
Love
Yeah.
doing
Yeah.
that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've been watching so many of like those movies, like Hallmark style movies on Netflix. I'm so excited that they're out.
Netflix just dropped
Yes,
like a whole
yes,
bunch of
yes.
Hallmark, and I'm
Yep.
like, this was a void I didn't realize
Yes.
I needed filled, and I'm thrilled.
I know. The next
Same.
time's so fun. It's so fun.
I love it.
Well, Michelle, it's been such a pleasure talking with you again today. Is there anything you'd like to share with our listeners that you would like them to go check out?
I don't know about checkout, but just like a reminder,
Yeah.
right? Like you deserve
Mhm.
this time to yourself. You deserve to live life in a way that makes you feel alive. Okay. You are not put on this earth to serve other people. Okay. Like that can be a byproduct of you serving yourself first. So if anything that you take away from this episode, it's love yourself most, because everything else will just come pouring out of you, right? If you love yourself most, you will have so much overflow to give to other people. So don't take from yourself, give them from the overflow. You get to have a full cup too.
That's really impactful, actually. Like I kind of felt that one in my chest. What a great sign off. My
Thank you for
God.
that final message. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Michelle, please don't be a stranger, because we obviously love chatting with you on our show, and we, want to keep that relationship going. But thank you so much for being here with us, and we look forward to speaking to you again.
Yeah. And would you share
Can't
with
wait.
our listeners where they can find you?
Oh yeah, do that.
Yeah. So I have a podcast myself. So head on over there. It's called Marriage and Motherhood Podcast. You'll find an episode with Tam and Erin there. And so go check that out. And then also I'm on Instagram and Threads under Michelle Purta Coaching, and I would love to connect with you. So if you are really resonating with what you've heard from this episode, let me know. I would love to hear about what you love most about what I shared and meet you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And we definitely reach out to Michelle or us. Like we are all very up for connecting on socials. So definitely. And if you like this episode, definitely follow us, give us a review. We'd really love it. And thanks for joining us again, Michelle.
Bye, Michelle. Thank you.
All right. Bye.
And then that's it.
Yep.
You did it. Welcome.